Live from the KFOX 14 studios in El Paso and Las Cruces, it's the Emmy Award-winning KFOX 14 News at 9.
2 years ago, I was here to mark a historic moment in the life of our nation and our military, the end of major combat operations in Iraq.
Our crews are there as President Barack Obama arrives in El Paso and tells soldiers at Fort Bliss his plan to take care of them and end the war in Afghanistan. Good evening. I'm Erica Castillo.
And I'm John Purvis. First on Fox this evening, the president came to Fort Bliss to talk about new mental health care services available to military veterans and about the threat of major defense budget cuts that could come in the new year. KFOX 14 News at 9's Rick DuPont was there for the president's address today. He begins our team coverage.
I watched a group of about 5,000 soldiers waiting patiently for hours in tight quarters for the President of the United States to arrive in El Paso and speak. Now, everyone I spoke with told me they were happy with what they heard today. Some were even surprised.
And so 2 years ago, I was able to come here to Bliss and mark the end of our combat mission. And that night, I told the American people that all our troops would be out of Iraq by the end of the following year. At the time, I know some folks didn't believe me. They were skeptical.
The president pointed out that he kept his promises, and he promised that 30,000 troops will come back from Afghanistan this month, and all of them will come back by 2014.
Just as in Iraq, we are going to end this war responsibly.
Even though a big theme was bringing soldiers home,
most of our troops have come home. And as more Afghans step up, more of our troops will come home.
A group of soldiers who will be deployed to Afghanistan around the end of this year sat directly behind the president.
And ready first.
The threat of major budget cuts loomed in the hangar. If Congress can't reach a deal to chip away at the national debt, $1.2 trillion could be cut from the Department of Defense and other departments.
But understand, nobody wants these cuts, and that's why Congress threatened them, to force themselves to make hard decisions. Well, here's the thing. There's no reason those cuts should happen.
The president just signed an executive order ensuring better mental health access to soldiers, one department that will not face cuts either way.
But America's responsibilities to you have only just begun. Hey! I hear you.
We learned yesterday that Obama came to Fort Bliss partially to find out what the post is doing so well to prevent soldier suicides.
We need to give you the best support and care when you come home. Hope. We just had a roundtable with some soldiers and their families talking about how coming home can be its own struggle, especially for our wounded warriors. So we've poured tremendous resources into this effort.
Obama also talked about a promising exit plan for soldiers leaving the military that would help them get into school and use the training they already have towards school credits. Reporting from the studio, Rick DuPont, KFOX 14 News at 9.
Before coming to Fort Bliss today, President Obama signed an executive order to provide more mental health services to military veterans. Local mental health care providers are pleased the president's promising more resources, but say the demand for those services may outstrip the supply of help that's available for a while. Christy Daugherty is the Chief Executive Officer of Emergence Health Network, formerly known as El Paso MHMR. She says the underlying problem is finding enough qualified mental health professionals to help all the soldiers and family members in need.
It's difficult to retain and recruit a lot of times the licensed clinicians. We, as the Community Mental Health Center, face that for our services, and so I can imagine, you know, the Beaumont is also struggling to be able to fill those positions as quickly as they'd like to.
You can see our entire interview with Daugherty, who joined Erica and I on the set for our live coverage of President Obama's address, by logging on to kfoxtv.com.
And while many people support the president's visit, there are always those who take the opportunity to protest. The Border Peace Presence says it is upset the war in Afghanistan continues. One of the organizers tells us he thinks it's been nothing but a failure.
I tell them that the war in Afghanistan is going nowhere. The Afghan government barely exists, and what does exist is corrupt and traitorous.
The Border Peace Presence says that it believes the president has had a positive impact on the economy. Soldiers on Fort Bliss say it's always nice to see the Commander-in-Chief, and today's visit was no exception as the President delivered a message on mental health and an expiration date for the war in Afghanistan. KFOX 14 News at 9's Genevieve Curtis continues our team coverage.
A whooping crowd reaction from Fort Bliss soldiers as the Commander-in-Chief took the stage.
Hello, Team Bliss!
For military families like Catherine Bachman, the atmosphere in the room was electric.
I certainly like the crowd reaction.
But it's more than just the excitement of a presidential visit. In his brief 2-hour stop at Fort Bliss, the president brought big news, promising and pledging to help soldiers returning from war deal with mental health issues.
I like hearing that they're gonna really help soldiers when they come back from deployment. Coming back is hard for a lot of them, and they need to get help right away. They don't need to wait, and certainly the suicide rates indicate that we don't need to wait.
That's a concern for us, and for him to make it a priority, that's excellent. As a former commander and an officer, we want our soldiers in tip-top shape.
In a closed-door meeting, the president met with troops who have used the behavioral health system at Fort Bliss, the base with one of the lowest suicide rates in the Army.
We're doing some really neat things here, and you recognize that too, and that was very positive.
That was Genevieve Curtis reporting. Soldiers say it was also good to hear the president reaffirm his commitment to draw down troops in Afghanistan by 2014. Among the dignitaries at today's visit, Congressman Sylvester Reyes, Mayor John Cook, County Judge Veronica Escobar. The White House calling this an official presidential visit, not a campaign stop. State Representative Joe Pickett, also on hand to hear the president's speech, afterward took a minute to talk with us.
Most people are going to classify as a campaign stop, but he can't stop being the president either. And I was here, I was invited. It's close to the issues that I'm working on the state level.
KFOX 14 learned today before the president walked out on stage this afternoon, he took time to meet with the family of Army Specialist Isela Rubalcava. The Canutillo High School graduate died on May 8, 2004 while serving in Iraq. She's believed to be the first El Paso area woman ever killed in combat. This was President Obama's third visit to the borderland, and he is the 12th U.S. president to visit El Paso. Former President George W. Bush visited in 2005. So did President Clinton in 1996. Going back to the 1980s, President Reagan came here in 1983, and President Gerald Ford came here in 1976. 8 other presidents have visited throughout El Paso's history.
We asked the El Paso Republican Party if they had a comment on the president's visit. They told us, quote, "Out of respect for the servicemen and women, we would not like to criticize the president on his campaign stop in El Paso." Our coverage doesn't end here. Make sure you head to kfoxtv.com, where you can find everything from video of the president's arrival and departure, as well as his entire speech. There is also a gallery featuring Air Force One. And then don't forget to become a fan on Facebook and Twitter to make sure you never miss out on news that affects you.
Sun Metro leaves a woman in a wheelchair stranded at a car dealership in Sunland Park after dropping her off hours earlier. KFOX 14 News at 9's Veronica Macias joins us live from Sunland Park to tell us about the confusion that caused her all the trouble in a story you'll see only on KFOX 14.
52-year-old Nancy Davenport was dropped off at this car dealership in Sunland Park around 3 p.m. yesterday, but today we learned that she was close enough to the state line where Sun Metro, under ADA policy, should have picked her up even if she was in New Mexico.
I called him on Tuesday and asked him if I could have a bus to go to 159 Sunland Park Drive.
Ever since Nancy Davenport got this electric wheelchair, she tries to get out as often as she can. So when she heard the dealership was giving away freebies, she scheduled her trip. On Thursday, Sun Metro picked and dropped her off without a problem. The driver never mentioned this dealership is outside of the service limits.
I didn't know Sisbaro was on the wrong side of the railroad tracks.
And she was left waiting till 6:30. When she called Sun Metro, they told her they don't go to New Mexico.
Basically confusion, miscommunication, and we actually could go pick her up.
Sun Metro's policy is that they go 3/4 of a mile beyond their service limit. So today, Nancy got an apology from a Sun Metro supervisor.
We're investigating exactly what happened, and we're trying to correct the situation so that this doesn't happen again.
Nancy was upset, ready to head over to the state line, but she never lost her sense of humor. In fact, she took the opportunity to flirt a little.
I'm a white single available.
Davenport charmed the workers there, who called her a cab. It's an experience that will leave her checking twice before heading out the door. Now, Davenport tells me that call from Sun Metro came around 1 this afternoon, apologizing for her inconvenience. They also gave her a couple of tokens to ride their regular service, since she does have to pay for Sun Metro Lyft. Reporting live in Sunland Park, Veronica Macias, KFOX 14, News at 9.
A semi-truck rolls over near Gateway East in Zaragoza. Take a look at the picture Jocelyn Cepeda shared on our Facebook page this morning. You can see the big rig came to rest on its side. KFOX 14 got to the intersection in time to capture this cleanup. The truck's gas tank ruptured, spilling diesel fuel onto the road. And this video was sent to us by KFOX 14 by El Paso State Representative Joe Pickett. He happened to catch this truck on fire near Fort Bliss after watching the president's speech this afternoon. It happened at around 2 p.m. and this picture was sent to us by KFOX 14 viewer Joe Sosa, who gave us a look at the truck after the fire. We are told no one was hurt.
And a man is killed after crossing a downtown intersection. Police found the 60-year-old victim near the corner of Santa Fe and Main Streets about 10 last night. Officers say he crossed against a light and a driver wasn't able to stop in time before hitting him. The driver will not be charged. A water main break in West El Paso had some students getting out of school early for the Labor Day weekend. It happened at Belvedere and Wrestler at about 10 this morning. We are told the road collapsed under the break. El Paso Water Utilities workers were soon at the scene trying to repair the broken water line. This prompted Coronado High School to release its students at 1:30. A strip mall in Las Cruces is damaged after a fire. The Las Cruces Fire Department says a police officer saw smoke off Main Street at about 2:15 this morning. Firefighters burst into the building to find a fire in the front room. The fire caused heavy smoke damage. Investigators have not determined how it all started.
El Paso County Sheriff's deputies arrest a mother and her son, who they say are part of an organized theft ring. Undercover deputies arrested Olga Steele and her son, Jose Luis Martinez, accusing them of committing various thefts inside retail stores. The two operated as a team inside the stores, and deputies say they saw them taking various items. Some of the stolen property includes electronics like computers, along with DVDs, video games, food, and other household goods. Federal court documents paint a clear picture of the FBI's case against two former El Paso School District trustees accused of corruption. The documents reveal Cirilo Chilo Madrid, who was arrested in December of last year, and his business partner, Sonny Garcia, allegedly bribed former EPISD trustee Carlos Cordova. They allegedly paid Cordova and another unnamed trustee to award $3 million worth of contracts to a local company for dropout recovery services. Madrid's trial is scheduled to start October 1st.
The President of the United States arrived at Chamber of Commerce weather in El Paso today. Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz is in our KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center with your first look at weather.
Yes, it was, Erica. Just in time, too. Let's take a look at our weather net so you can see just how warm we were. Today, we were in the lower to mid 90s around El Paso, so it could have been a little toasty for the president, but it feels nice right now. 83 degrees right now in Las Cruces at Bravo Chevrolet and in El Paso. We have 86 degrees in central El Paso at Global Hospice Care with those light winds and low humidity, and in the west side of town, pretty much the same. But we are in for a fairly nice weekend. Unfortunately, it could be a little toasty. I'll let you know just how warm we will be still ahead.
The City of El Paso's pet ordinance will soon change, bringing with it a first-of-its-kind registration. not for the pets, but for their owners. How this will work.
New Mexico dealing with massive wildfires months ago. Why officials have now lifted some of the closure orders.
A DWI crackdown this Labor Day weekend, and the people the El Paso County Sheriff's Office will honor with their efforts.
And we're sharing with you throughout this hour some of the photos taken behind the scenes of President Obama's visit to Fort Bliss, taken by our crews and those from the El Paso Times.